Morning, brethren. This morning we come to the last section of Philippians chapter 1, verses 27 to 30. And we're going to be thinking here about Paul's primary concern wasn't his own personal state and his own condition. He knew that if he did get out of prison, then the result would be that he'd be able to go on serving the Lord. And so he's able to write in the verses that lead up to verse 27, if I go on living in the body, this will mean fruitful labour for me, yet what I shall choose I do not know. I am torn between the two. I have a desire to depart and be with Christ, which is far better, but it is more necessary for you that I remain in the body. So Paul isn't able to say for definite what is going to happen to him. If he's released, then he'll see them again. If he's found guilty, he won't. But his chief concern wasn't his own personal state, not what would happen to him, but rather the advancement of the cause of Christ in the world, which of course included the growth and development and the maturing of these believers in Philippi in their faith. And so, having taken time to speak about his own personal circumstances, Paul now moves quickly away from himself to focus on the believers there in the church of Philippi. And he says in verse 27, whatever happens, that is, whatever happens to me, whatever happens, conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. Then, whether I come and see you or only hear about you in my absence, I will know that you stand firm in one spirit, contending as one man for the faith of the gospel, without being frightened in any way by those who oppose you. So in verse 27, we come across what is actually the first imperative, the first apostolic command in this letter. And we want to look at this. Conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel. If you read from the AV, you'll see it says, only let your conversation be as becometh the gospel of Christ. And the word conversation in the Old English simply meant the way you lived, the way in which you conducted yourself. And Paul wants them to conduct themselves in a manner that is worthy of the gospel of Christ. Philippi was a Roman colony. We've seen that in one of our earlier studies. It was a city where the majority of the people who lived there were people who not only enjoyed the status of being Roman citizens, but also demonstrated by the way they dressed, the language they used, by the way in which they behaved themselves, by their different customs and so on. They showed themselves to be Romans, fully committed to the Roman Empire. And any outsider looking in on the people of Philippi would be left in no doubt that these people were Roman citizens, and they were proud to be Roman citizens. You could see it in the way they lived. They showed respect and they showed honour to the Roman Emperor. They obeyed the Roman law, they spoke the Roman language, they engaged in Roman pastimes and pursuits and so on. So Paul has a very definite concept in mind here when he selects this word that he uses to behave as citizens in a way that is worthy of the gospel. And what he's saying to these Christians is, you are citizens of heaven. And just as you've been accustomed to demonstrating your Roman citizenship in a very, very clear, unmistakable way, make sure you conduct yourself in such a way that people know that you belong to Christ. Live as heavenly colonists. That's a good way of putting it. By your life, leave no one in any doubt that you are citizens of heaven, that you're a Christian. You've become, through the gospel, members of God's kingdom. That's where your primary loyalty lies. That's where your primary interests are, the things of God. And the way in which you live your life should bear testimony to that fact. Conduct yourself in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. And brethren, that's something that ought to be true of us as we go about our daily business, as we go about our daily responsibilities. whether it's in our job, whether it's in our neighbourhood, whether it's in school, wherever we happen to be, we are to conduct ourselves in a way that is worthy of the gospel of Christ. And God willing, over the next couple of days, we'll look at what that means in practical terms with regards to various aspects of our lives as Christians. But here's the principle: conduct yourself in a way that is worthy of the gospel. As people look at you, they should be able to see unmistakably you're a Christian. Is that true of you? Do the people around you know that you're a follower of Jesus? Well, hopefully, as we study this, we'll get more insight into it. May the Lord be with you today, and may He bless you richly. All the best.